and in accordance with House Rule 67 and the Governor's Emergency Order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location for members of the public to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that all members of the committee and select legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom electronic meeting platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting by the Zoom platform or by telephone. All necessary access information has been made available in the House calendar and through the electronic calendar on the General Court website. The notice for this meeting complies with House rules and RSA 91A. Anyone who has a problem accessing the meeting should email lba_fiscal@leg.state.nh.us. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. LBA staff are on the meeting assisting us. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So Representative Lynn, if you would call the roll.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Bucco.
Yes, thank you. I am present. I'm at my home in Conway, and there's no one else in the house.
All right. Representative Danielson is not here. Representative Heath.
Good morning, Mary Heath here in Manchester at my home, and I'm here alone.
All right. And I'm Representative Lynn. I'm here at my home in Wyndham, and I'm alone in the room. My wife is elsewhere in the house. Representative Murray.
Good morning, everyone. Kate Murray is here in Newcastle. You already heard the dog, and David's in the basement.
Representative Petrie.
Thank you. I'm actually, my wife's roaming around. I'm Representative Petrie. My dog was barking because Kate's dog was, or Representative Murray was barking, reacting to that. So she's around here somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Umberger.
Yes, good morning. A, I don't have a dog. B, I don't have a cat or gerbil or anything else. But I am in my home in Kearsarge. My husband is in the house, but not in the room.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I see that Tammy is hiding behind the black screen. You just
I'm really not. I just can't figure out how to show myself. I've sent Mickey a request.
Oh, I see. You should be able to start your video. Maybe in the bottom left, Tammy, is there like an option to toggle your video?
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you. I tried to do it up on the white side and it wouldn't let me do anything. Okay, I'm good.
Well, good morning, Tammy. I'm glad to see you. I'm
Thank
sure that
So Mickey, there may be some other folks in the waiting room as well at some point. So I think Caitlin's out there and maybe Steve is out there too, if we need to bring them in at a certain point. So.
Yep. Just let me know if at any time you want me to pull somebody in.
okay. Yeah, we're all here. We're pretty friendly and
Okay.
I'll bring Christina in.
So happy to be here. Yeah. Okay. So I'll go ahead and jump in.
Yep.
Great. So happy to be here. This is a follow-on to our previous kind of overview of the budget that we provided to you to answer very specific questions. As well, I wanted to start out with, there are a couple of changes that we are requesting in the budget, and we've provided that information to Mickey. And not really an unusual development in the sense that, when we start doing these budgets, we do them quite a long time in advance. And so stuff happens over time, and we find that we're in a position of needing to adjust it. One of those adjustments that we are asking for is a position in our Bureau of Credentialing. And this is associated with our bus driver credentialing. That was a bill that was passed in the last legislative session. And it became effective on January 1st. So we couldn't apply for a position to put it into our budget because we didn't have, the bill hadn't gone into effect yet. So we couldn't apply to DOP to get the position. That happened on January 1. We've applied and gotten the position, or we're getting the position. So now we just need to add the funding for this bus driver credentialing person. So just for context, for those of you who are not through that previous legislative session, presently background checks on school bus drivers are performed locally at each individual district. This sometimes results in a hardship to the districts and the bus drivers in the sense that you may have a bus driver who drives for multiple districts. In fact, I was on the call this morning about a bus driver incident, a bus driver who drives for 2 separate districts. And as a result of that, the way the previous law had read, that bus driver had to get 2 separate background checks, one from each district in which they drove, because they were not permitted to share that information between districts. And so they have consolidated that activity at the agency. And so we will be running the bus driver background checks going forward, and just need to add that position in there. The second item that I wanted to bring to your attention is a position that we have in one of our bureaus that we want to move to a different bureau. This is part of what I would refer to as kind of ongoing reorganization. And so we will be consolidating some of our activities in our Bureau of Learner Support, and wanted to move a position that we have in one of the bureaus into another place in the organization to be able to facilitate that. And so you'll see that transfer as well that we've put there for you. And then the last item that we had shared with you are 2 grants that we received after the budgeting process, primarily because they had to go through an MOU process with the Department of Health and Human Services. And these are grants associated with our Promising Future grants that we are making to schools, as well as our Purple Star grant program. This is a funding that comes to us through the BDAS, so the Bureau of Drug and Alcohol activities. They provided a grant to us via Health and Human Services to provide support to schools for preventative funding programs. And so that is the other item. And I think when we sent that over to you, we also included the fiscal items that would have gone through the fiscal process as well. So those are 3 of the modifications that I think we are going to ask that if you can help us just tune up our budget going into this process, that would be helpful to us. And with that said, I will then pause and really can kind of respond to questions that you may have about the details in our budget.
Representative Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Commissioner. Just could you talk a little bit more about the changes in positions that you just described?
Sure. So there's, are you talking about the last one that we talked about?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a position, it's an admin 4 that is in the Bureau of, it's in the Title 4B Bureau. And then Tammy, where is it going to? Like, what is the, it's the Bureau of Instructional Support is, I think, where it goes to. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a position, Mary, just going back a little bit, you might remember you had Julie Couch was overseeing the assessment and the title program. So it's that position.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I had to get some coffee.
No worries at all. I mean, I don't know if there are any specific questions. I mean, we can follow up on some of the questions that we had from the last time. I have had some variety of different outreach specifically around the dual and concurrent. But I know that that's a topic of conversation and everybody's having dialogue around it. I'm happy to answer any additional questions. At the department, we still believe that that's a program better housed through the community college system than at the department, because we're really just a pass-through organization, not adding value to that process. And so would encourage that, that to be a program embedded at the community college, maybe more than the Department of Education. Because essentially we just get an invoice from them and then we pay the invoice, so.
Representative Heath.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. It is so disappointing about dual enrollment. I actually was just having a conversation with someone this morning about that. And I've spoken with Susan Heward and Beth Dorian from the program. I am really hopeful that we can do something, because the impact will be 6,000 students that have benefited from that program over the years. And it makes such a huge difference to families, because so many kids go on to college and have those extra credits. So anything that you can do from your side would be appreciated, and hopefully we can do something from our side. But if I may, Madam Chair, I do have a couple of questions on the first section of the budget, if I may.
Absolutely. This is kind of a free time to ask any questions that we have, because this will more than likely be the last day, other than for DOE. You know, if we have specific questions as we're going through the finalization of the budget, and so we'll see. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question is going to be for Tammy in combination with the Commissioner. But there are increases in the general fund lines in the Office of the Commissioner and in the Office of the Deputy Commissioner. And I was wondering if you could just describe why there are those increases and the changes that are happening there, please. Thank you.
So, and is there a specific page that you want to focus on?
Well, we've got page 1195. Wait a second. Yes, for the Office of the Commissioner in the general funds. And then on the Office of the Deputy, oh, I should have marked the page. I'm sorry. I think it's
It's like,
1196.
yeah, it's the next page, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Just in the line of it's gone from well, in 2021, 1.2, almost 1.3 million, and it go, oh, well, actually, it's not that big an increase. So is that the new position that you added to your staff?
No, I don't think so. Tammy can weigh in. If I just go back
Okay.
up, I think what you're going to find is that you see in the personnel. So both, you know, we had raises. So as you know, that there's the normal step increases that people are awarded,
Okay,
as well as the benefit costs are increasing. I'm just going through the different line items. You know, so the biggest is there's about a $36,000 increase just in step increases for the people who are in the Office of the Commissioner, which is going to include, I believe, the Commissioner, our communications person, our administrative support, and who else is in there, Tammy?
The receptionist.
And the
Okay.
receptionist.
And
And
then
actually, so
the
that might be driving some of it to Representative Keith if it's receptionist, because if you recall, that was a position that was unfilled for a period of time and was cost shared among some of the other bureaus. I think probably back when you were here, remember, like every bureau used to kick in a little bit for
Yep.
the reception.
I remember.
And really, it was difficult to manage that from a compliance standpoint because of the federal funds that were coming in there. So now this is a fully funded in the general funds type of approach.
Makes good sense and is as it should be. And in the Office of the Deputy, now that general fund line has increased from 635,000 now to 740,000. What are the changes in that line from, please?
So most of this is around, if you'll see where we're driving it, if you go just up top, you can see there's some decline, some increases and some decreases. So we took out some funding out of the professional development specific to staff members at the department, primarily because we had put a certain amount in and it wasn't being used as much as we thought it was going to be used. Where we were paying for people to take post-secondary opportunities and stuff like that. We are continuing to encourage professional development around stuff like, getting your Excel skills up to speed. In particular, a lot of Adobe work is going on because we're doing a lot of workflow stuff in terms of automation. But then if you go down into the contracts, what you'll see is there's a communications increase. And we've got our kind of our full-time communications person. But what we've discovered is that getting messaging out to people is just vitally important, particularly in the pandemic. We've discovered how important it is. And so we're working primarily with Cookson to do a variety of like PDF type documents that we allow the schools to have to communicate stuff. I think I might have shared with you last time, one that we did around the food and nutrition, how we created a document that the schools could use to send home to their families about the importance of signing up for free and reduced lunch stuff. And then, for example, at noon today, I'll be sharing a document around the educator vaccinations, right? So what we've really done is kind of professionalize some of this communication to make it easier for us as well as the schools to get a consistent message out to the whole population. And I don't know if I have screen share, I can give you an example of what one of those might look like, if that's helpful. I don't know if that'd be useful.
Yes, Commissioner, I would appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to show you one that this is, probably I shouldn't be sharing this with you yet because it hasn't gone public, but I'm going to give this is, I don't think there's too many people paying attention here. So as an example, here's what we'll be sharing with our school leaders. I think you should be able to see that right now.
Yes,
It says phase 2A.
yes.
Yeah, so these are the kinds of things that we put together that we then provide to the schools, and then we put, you can put them out on social media, and it's like who and how you get done and how you get the vaccine and stuff like that. So these are the types of documents that we anticipate being able to share with people to be able to just make sure everybody stays on the same page.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. That's great.
Representative Petrie, you have a question? If we could, let's just stay with the commissioner and the deputy commissioner until everybody has asked all the questions that they want to ask on that. So Joe, is your question on the commissioner or deputy commissioner?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome again, Commissioner Frank. You've been here before. The question is, what are your concerns on the merger between the community college system and the university system?
So I'm actually quite comfortable with the proposal by the governor to do that. And I think that the way that he has done that is in such a way that we don't have to answer all of the questions. Because if you think about the primary driver here is a combined oversight board between the community college system and the university system. And then that collective board is then able to work out a lot of the details in terms of what that might look like. I have been an advocate all along for creating, seamless pathways for students in our system. And I think that this is a policy that is also consistent with that in terms of trying to create seamless pathways for students to be able to move forward. I don't know that we've necessarily worked out all of the details, nor do I know that we have to, but because by creating that combined board, we really create a governance structure that can move forward those policies to allow, the objectives of seamless, access, as well as some of the concerns that people have about integrating two systems. That would be my perspective.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I'm, as I think I mentioned to you, I'm going to have to leave for at least a little while. I have 2 hearings on my bills, but I'll be back as soon as I can. And I apologize to the members of the committee and to the commissioner and his assistant.
Thank you, Representative.
No problem whatsoever. Representative Petrie has to leave as well, so not right now, but soon. Okay, Representative Murray, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just clarifying two things that from Representative Heath. On 1193, there is a third position there. Is that the combined position that Commissioner you were talking about, or is that a new position?
Get me on?
Tammy, you're muted.
I could tell you were gonna do.
Sorry,
Sorry. That's the receptionist the commissioner was talking about?
that's the combined position thing. Okay, and the other, the contracts, those are, that was really interesting what you showed. I'm glad you showed that because that really kind of clarified what you were talking about. And that's Cooks and Communications.
That's who we have the contract with right now. So.
Just, point of interest, his dad taught me advanced music theory
Oh,
in
wow.
graduate school.
Very cool, actually.
Okay, I do have a question on, this is on page 1195, which is dealing with the National Forest Land Grant. How is that, I assume it's distributed to the communities that have national forest as part of their life. How do we distribute that money to the towns?
So it is a formula grant. I don't know, Tammy.
Yes, when we receive those funds from the feds, they actually tell us who we need to distribute those funds to. And there's an individual in my office that reaches out to the towns if there's any question as to whether or not it's going to a district or if it's going directly to the town. So it's not one answer fits all. It depends on the feedback we get back from the community.
Okay,
But it
thank
is
you.
typically a pass-through item for us, right?
Okay, are there any further questions there? All right, seeing none. What do we have next? Okay, sorry, Representative Murray.
Can you just speak briefly to, I know they're federal funds, but it looks like it's a new grant for preschool development on 1198. Can you just give a few words about what that means? That looks, I'm down with preschool education here.
Yeah. So this was a grant that we had done a combination of University of New Hampshire, Department of Education, and Department of Health and Human Services. We applied for that grant and won it. We're now about 18 months into that award that we won that grant. So it wasn't in our previous budget, but obviously it's going to be in this budget going forward. And it's, again, work on preschool development grant is what it's referred to, and it's working on our early childhood education efforts. It was a fairly sizable grant, about $33 million. Yeah.
So so the 93 that's here is just your part of it?
That's correct. So most of it is run through the University System of New Hampshire. So they are the fiduciary for the grant, and this is our staff. So in the grant, we wrote up certain positions at the department to manage our portion of that, along with the staff from HHS has some people in it, as well as the university system has the bulk of the funding associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
And mostly, if it matters, so most of that funding, so this is some staff level positions, but most of the money is passed through to community grants around various setting up systems on a go-forward basis.
Representative Heath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I jump ahead to analytics?
Yeah.
Is that
Okay,
all right?
Yeah, just tell me if
Just tell us the page.
All right, I am on page 1205. And this is the line at the bottom, general funds, where there's a bump there from 407 to 669. Just wondering if that's a new system or what is happening there?
So I think that the primary driver is really around some positions. You'll see we went from 2 to 4. And if you go up to the top, you just look at the personnel, you had nothing in there. We went from 36K to 200,000. And really much of that is around some of the restructuring that was taking place and filling positions that had not been filled in the past around accountability, as an example, was one of them. And there's another one, and Caitlin might be on, and she might want to jump in and weigh in on this if you want to look for her, Mickey. In fact, I'm going to pause for a minute and just see if she's there. She wants to weigh in.
Here she comes.
Good morning.
Hi, Caitlin.
Did you hear the
So-
question, Caitlin?
Yes, I did. So those were actually just positions that were in a different accounting unit that were moved over to this accounting unit. So it was just part of the organization. They're not new positions, and they actually were not unfilled positions in the last budget. They just weren't necessarily in the appropriate place in the 20 and 21 budget. So
Thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it.
And while Caitlin's here, can I ask one more question, Madam Chair, please?
Oh, absolutely.
On page 1209, technology software, there's actually it went down, but then was that a purchase that you made in 21, and then there's a 401,000 in 22 and 375 in 23. Is that the cost to sustain that piece of software?
no, that is not. So the 401 and the 375 is actually our ongoing software that we have had continuously. So things like our iReport, our Tableau software, things that we've been working with. The large purchase was have been working strategically to upgrade the student information system. And the Department of Education will need a funding level of that additional $1.5 million to maintain a new student information software. However, we're not given that money right now in this version of the budget, so we will not be able to maintain a new student information system at this level. We did have some luck with applying for federal money to purchase the system. And so we are looking to release the RFP momentarily right now for the new system, but we will need to increase funding levels to be able to maintain that system going forward.
So Representative Heath, you may recall in that previous budget, this was one of our prioritized needs. So we still believe that it's something that's important to the agency, and it's important to the state. And as I often like to point out, it will save man years of time for our school district. It will improve our ability to get you good and timely information, and it will improve data security for our students. So we think it's a good thing, and that's why it's in our prioritized list, but we weren't able to fit it into the parameters of our budget that we had received from the governor's office.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Chair, if I may, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
absolutely, please.
Caitlin, what does this mean to school districts?
So just a little background information. So our current system, it's called I4C. It's a proprietary software to the state of New Hampshire. It was developed, I believe, maybe when you were at the department, or even prior. It was 2001, and so 20 years ago. And when we first originally developed this software, we were a leader in the country as far as student data collection systems. Because it's an internally developed system, there has not been a lot of continuing operations costs. So that's obviously a bonus for the state. But now we are here 20 years later, and there's a lot better systems that are available that the state of New Hampshire really should be taking advantage of. Many of the school districts across the state have gone on their own and invested in student information systems. And then they would be, if the state of New Hampshire had a better system available, be able to integrate automatically into our system and be able to report information to us without having to do a lot of the manual work that school districts are having to do now. So right now for a school to say, if you were to have a new collection for school, so say you want to know all the kids that have blue eyes, for example, in the schools, the Department of Education would have to contract with a vendor to modify our system, then provide training to school districts, then have the school districts have their own internal reports developed, download those, upload them to our system, and then spend a lot of time validating the data across the different school districts. If we had better systems at the state level, all of that could be automated and you wouldn't need the excess staff time at the school districts nor the Department of Education staff time that's spent, which would mean not only less time, but it would mean a higher quality of data being reported automatically to the state.
Thank you.
And I will just point out as well, like this is my third attempt at this one, because I do think, again, it's just going to make everybody's lives easier. And if you imagine, I didn't actually remember, Caitlin, that the other system was developed back in like 2001. I mean, in tech talk, that's a long time ago.
So are you telling me where's the number?
It's line 38 on page 1209.
Prioritized needs item that they're discussing was.
Okay, so you're saying that this change hands, the figure of 401, you said you've applied for a federal grant to
Yes.
take care of the purchase of the software?
Yes,
And-
so.
And then the 401 would be for licensing and whatever else, is that correct?
No, so at the current levels that you're seeing right there, the 401, that does not include operating a new system. That is just operating our current systems when we need to contract out for a vendor, for some of our other current systems that we have that are up and going. In our prioritized needs budget, we do not have the operating expenses. What in the past, you have seen a similar request in the capital budget as to our operating budget for an additional $2 million. So that would be the initial purchase. And then this line right here that you see is the ongoing operations of the additional $1.5 million. So if you look in our capital budget, we don't have a request for the $2 million in the capital budget because we have been successful in obtaining federal money for the initial purchase. But we do not have the ongoing operating costs covered.
And how much is that?
It's about, we estimate it to be about $1.5 million a year. It can vary. We're going to have hopefully results back from our RFP shortly. And the part that is kind of up in the air is how many school districts choose to use the state system, because one of the things that we're hoping to be able to do is offer the school districts the ability to use the state system at a reduced or zero cost to the school districts. And then that would give us some purchasing power and obviously save some money by the school districts. So that is kind of one of the up in the air type things about really figuring out what the cost will be right now.
And I guess, Rep. Unberger, one of the things along that line too, and Caitlin, I don't recall the actual per pupil amounts, but for example, if we were to have a statewide system, a typical district may be paying, upwards of $15 a head per kid to be able to use if they buy their own license. But if we were to do a consolidated system, then we might be able to get it for as much as $8. So
Yes.
while it is true that we would be paying for, we would be paying for those license costs at the state, we would actually save the education system, more than, the cost of the system statewide.
Okay, thank you. Representative Heath, did you have any follow-up on that? Representative Murray?
Thank you. I thought I was following along and then I got confused again. So you haven't purchased this new software yet?
No.
And you don't have, when you say maintain, is that actually what you need in order to use the software, or is it what you need in order to continually upgrade and maintain the software going forward? So is it maintain in terms of using it now or maintain going forward with upgrades?
So the $2 million that we received federal money, that's the initial purchase, that's installation on our systems, that's installation on school district systems and the various professional development that comes on training the various schools to use the system. The 1.5 that we would need would be the ongoing software licensing costs to continue using our systems. That we hope to, depending on the vendor, would cover things like when the legislature proposes new legislation, the software would likely come with maintenance agreements. It's they are automatically have to include those new reports at no additional costs. The school districts have those types of deals in their current contracts, and we would hopefully have that too. So it would be the ongoing operations, updating of the system, everything should be included in that licensing fees.
So federally, you have the grant funds for the software and
To
you
purchase.
need to use the software. You need us
Yes.
to provide money to use it.
Yes, exactly.
It'd be tough to get it and not be able to use it.
Right.
We don't want to do that. No, that's not a good idea. We need the whole package, but I mean, again, we've asked for the package a couple of times and we didn't get it, but we found this grant, so we've applied for it. Anything we can do to, offset the cost, we will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Is there anything else that people want to, okay. Representative Heath, you have actually covered all of my questions so far. So good on you.
My question is about, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. This is my budget that I know the best. In terms, you have 7 positions that you're requesting. Could you describe those positions and the purpose of each, and the long range look at what the potential is for those continued funding source?
Yeah, so there's the 7 positions are comprised of 2 categories. The first is 5 positions for the Disability Determination Service, DDS. And so these are positions that the Social Security Administration has requested that we expand our capacity to provide those services. Those positions would only be available to the extent that they are funded, right? If the federal funds go away, then those positions would also go away. The other 2 positions that we have 2 charter school funded positions, and these also come to us through a federal grant. So the $46 million charter school grant that we received, the grant application included 2 positions in it to administer that grant. And so these are included in that. And similar to the DDS work, if that grant goes away for some reason, then these positions would also go away.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I may, Madam Chair, one more.
Absolutely.
In terms of those 2 positions, one of the things that when I was at the department many years ago, we were able to do some reviews and oversight for the charter schools. What is going to be and then funding was eliminated and there was really not a lot of oversight because of the grant that you got and the increase in numbers of charters. What kind of oversight do you see happening as a result of all these new positions?
Yep. So certainly there's 2 aspects of that. So these 2 charter school positions are written into the grant that are really designed around this. This is a startup grant. So these are positions that will be working with the schools to be able to get going. For ongoing schools that are either doing a replication or an expansion grant, they would support them. These positions, another aspect of the grant is what's referred to as best practices. So they would have responsibility to propagate those best practices in all of our schools, whether those be charter schools or traditional public schools, to make sure that that information gets out. These would not be specific monitoring types of positions. We do have, and over the last couple of years have been putting in place monitoring processes. So for example, also within Caitlin's bureau, she has a Bureau of Compliance that does compliance monitoring of our grantees, all of our schools, and looks at those. And that program, has been stood up for probably about 18 months now. Caitlin, you correct me if I'm wrong. And so we have been executing against that, and it has been effective in terms of helping to make sure that we have federal compliance, like compliance with all the federal grants. And then as well, we are now having our other compliance, which is accountability compliance is the way to describe it, which means that we've got schools that are complying with the state educational regulations. And that work, we actually have a position that we have hired. It's been difficult to find somebody who has that position. We have an individual who is I think they're a principal in a school right now, will be coming to us at the end of this contract year, and we'll be able to begin to do that work. So I feel like we have the compliance work, that is happening, but in these two particular funds are mostly tied to the grant activity.
Thank you, Commissioner. And one more question related to assessment of charters, but also assessment of our public school students. What is the assessment methodology right now, please?
Yep. So Caitlin, do you want to weigh in on that? Or otherwise I can take it, but yeah.
Sure. So just like when you were at the department, we had the the 3 through 8 and 11 assessment in math, English language, arts, and science. We still have that same assessment. In 2015, we switched from our New Hampshire kneecap to the Smarter Balance assessment. And in 2019, or maybe 18, 17. I believe, 18. So we switched from Smarter Balance, which was owned by AIR, the National Assessment Consortium, to New Hampshire SAS, which is very similar, owned by the same exact consultant assessment firm, very similar to that. It's just kind of a New Hampshire specific attest, whereas Smarter Balance was more of a name brand. And so we continue to implement that assessment. The assessment, we are working on exactly what that's going to look like given the pandemic and whatnot this year, and various changes that are being required and or allowed by the federal government. But that's the process that we continue to use, and we haven't really changed that at all as far as our general assessments. So, and the charter schools are required to take the exact same assessment that all of our public schools in the state of New Hampshire are required to take.
Great, thank you. And the cost is still shared, federal and state?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Paid for entirely by the state, though, not the school districts. So school districts don't incur any costs relative to the assessment.
Thank you.
Representative Petrie, you have a question?
No, I just, like I planned, I have to leave, but I want to thank the Education Department for efficiency and cost effectiveness of their program. It's really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Petrie. Are there other questions from anyone besides me? Okay. Let's go back to the total personnel. Let me get my right thing here. You had indicated that you were going to add a position in credentialing, or you wanted to add a position in credentialing. But yet, when you explained the jump from 287 to 294, you attributed all of that increase to federal programs. So
then,
tell me what I'm missing here.
so the 287 to the 294 is an increase of 7. And that increase of 7 includes the 5 Social Security Disability Administration and the 2 charter school positions. I'm now coming to you and saying, by the way, after I finish my budget, I need another position for the bus driver credentialing. So there's this new law that went into effect in January. And so then we went to DOP to get the position. And because what is going to happen is at the Department of Education, we will now be running background checks for school bus drivers. So it's really not 7, it's 8, including that one. But that one was kind of a late entry into the process, and that's why you're seeing it that way.
Okay, I guess I must have missed that conversation. I apologize.
Okay, so that was that beginning conversation of one of those modifications that we need. Like as you're working on the budget, there were 3 things that we needed that we think need to be added to the budget. One is for that, the bus driver. The other is for the transfer of the one position from one bureau to the Bureau of Instructional Support. And then the third is to be able to get appropriation associated with the Promising Futures grants and the Purple Star program. And so those are all activities that took place post-budget submission. And so I'm just saying, like, if we can add those now, then that would be helpful.
Have you forwarded that information to Mickey and I just missed it?
We did. I think he has it.
Okay, so that was, Mickey, that was what you sent yesterday?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I looked at it quickly, but I didn't, now I know I need to look at a little more.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Tammy, but I think the bus driver position is, it's going to be other funds funded, right? In other words, through the Bureau of Credentialing, if that's germane.
That is correct. And for clarification, in reality, that position was approved January 1st, so it technically is in our budget right now, or it's not really in the budget, but it is a position that is available to the department today. We just simply did not include it in the credentialing budget that was submitted during the agency phase because we did not have it available to us. So that's why we provided you a new budget for FY22 and 23 for the credentialing budget, because the inclusion of that position actually changes a lot of the other classes in that account.
So if you look on page 1226, you'll see the credentialing accounting unit 9008 on page 1226. And Tammy, perhaps you want to share your screen with the requested budget that you'd like to put in place of what is in the governor's recommended budget, just so the committee will kind of understand what you're looking to do here.
Okay, can everybody see that? Did it share?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Okay. So there were increases to not just the class 10 and the class 60, but we needed to increase things like rent and the phone telecommunications, and we needed to increase our contracts because the inclusion of this position in the credentialing budget also means that we need to do some software changes to our software to account for those new roles.
So essentially what the department's looking to do is replace what you see in the governor's recommended budget on page 1226 for that credentialing accounting unit with the account, with the budget that you see on the shared screen from Tammy. So, and like the commissioner said, these are not general funds. This is a restricted revolving fund, the credentialing fund that funds this accounting unit. So there would be no impact on your general fund picture for the division to do this change.
Representative Murray, you have a question?
Yeah, just so I'm following along. So on 1227, you have the total source of funds is 1725278, and that will change to 2012043.
Correct.
Is that right? Thank you.
No, we have a, I know we have a footnote. I know we have a footnote here that says, you know, these monies need to stay within this. Do we know how much money is actually in this fund? And can it absorb this new position without a corresponding increase to credentialing fees?
So ordinarily, I might say yes, Representative, except that what we did is we reduced our educator relicensure fees based on a model to bleed off any potential excess. So if we don't fund this position, then ultimately we would probably have to reverse some of that fee reduction that we've just provided to the educators because you probably can't afford to do both. Like I can't reduce the fees and increase the cost simultaneously. It would accelerate the bleed off of any potential surplus.
So did I just hear you say that you had thought you were going to reduce the fees, but with this new person, you won't be able to?
No, what I'm saying is I already did reduce the fees last spring. And so that fee reduction, because I was accumulating some funds in this account, and this is, again, the teachers pay their fees and I'm only trying to charge them what it costs me. So we reduced the fees in the spring. Then we got this bill that will result in an increased cost. So I think it might be imprudent to continue to have a fee reduction and an increase in cost. So I think it's better to just leave the fee reduced than to have this added to the budget.
So if I understood what you said, which obviously I didn't the first time, you reduced the fees in last year.
Yep.
And you had been planning to reduce the fees again.
We were re-looking at those options.
Okay. But because of your adding this position, you won't reduce the fees this coming year.
I don't think so. We're just going to continue to look at it and see. Anytime that I can create the reduction, I will, but right now I don't think so.
Okay. So this is kind of so in this area, you've already increased from 10 to 11. And so now you're asking to go from 11 to 12 positions. This is on,
Yeah, you're on page 1227. So
That's
I think we're
correct.
adding the one additional position. No, because I think, Tammy, you said that I already have the position, but I didn't. Go ahead and I'm going to let Tammy describe that. Because it's kind of this weird thing. There's like a donut hole. You get the authorization, but you don't actually have the DOP authorization kind of thing. So.
Right. I believe she Representative Umberger, I believe you are correct. We will go to 12 positions.
Okay.
okay. Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, you've got that for me someplace, right?
And Mickey has that. Yeah.
You've sent it to me.
Yeah, it's been sent to the committee. And
Okay,
it's online too, if the public is looking for this information.
okay, all right. Sounds good. Okay, are there any other questions from the group? Okay, let me find my questions here. Commissioner, I guess that you are have done a lot of rearranging of positions throughout the budget, and I assume that that's because you're doing a what do I want to call it? Yeah, a reorganization.
So I would say that there's a combination of stuff. There's not a ton of the reorganization, but I think, and Tammy, maybe you want to weigh in on this as well. We did create some new accounting unit type of control so that we had greater visibility and transparency into some of the activities that are going on.
Yes. Yeah, so for example, when Caitlin was talking earlier, during the reorg, we had the accounting units during the last budget, and she inserted positions where she thought they were going to be, but throughout the last 2 years, some of the positions just needed to be moved. They're still within her division, but she just needed to move them into more appropriate accounting units.
It's no problem. I just wanted to make sure that that's what it was all about. Representative Murray, you have a question?
I was wondering on 1233 if those change of positions is an example of what you're talking about. It went from 4 positions to 2. Did those get moved someplace else? This is under instructional support.
Instructional support.
Was that an example of, or did you actually lose those positions?
So this is one of these positions that was moved, is the position that the commissioner is requesting get reinstated into this same exact account. So instead of going from 4 down to 2, it would go from 4 down to 3, because we would move a position that is in another accounting unit back into this accounting unit.
So there were 2 positions that were lost, but you're going to move 1 back from another accounting unit. So this will actually be 3.
Tammy, do you know what the other position is?
Not off the top of my
Yeah, I
head.
don't know it off the top of my head. I apologize also.
If you go to page 1254, you'll see the other side of this conversation. For accounting unit 2519.
Right, the Title 4B is where we're moving that admin 4 position out of to be kind of oversight of some of this stuff, correct?
Nikki, you're amazing.
That's why we have them here.
And we like them at the department also.
So I guess, Rep. Umberger, I mean, essentially, when we move stuff around to try to be efficient in terms of who's where, make sure we have good accountability, but then also just some of the accounting unit stuff to make sure that we can keep everything clean.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, I do have a question on page 1202. You're showing a Office of the Deputy Commissioner printing revolving fund. And the source of revenue is revolving funds. Now, I understand that they're setting up a revolving fund in DAS for printing. Is this something different, or am I really confused?
So this is our copier fund and our printing fund here at the department.
I'm sorry, Tammy, you're not clear.
I'm not,
Yeah, your mic isn't working all that great today. I don't know why.
that better?
Yes,
Yes, okay. That's our copier account here at the department. So we rent copiers, we use this fund to pay for the copiers, and then we cost allocate from all of the programs back into reimburse the fund.
okay, that makes sense to me. This did not make sense because of what was said in the other thing. Okay. I made notes here, and
Don't worry.
I'm just trying to go through them. Okay, this is on page 1221, which is Veteran Education Services State. And we have a money from the feds to support this. So what are we doing with the state funds, since this was not there in the last budget?
So Tammy, you can weigh in as well, but I think it was in the last budget, but this is one of those where we tried to separate out so we could have clean accounting associated with it. Because we do run the Veterans Fund, which is basically, if this is the right accounting unit, in the career schools where we, you have to certify all of the programs associated with the education programs for veterans. And we are funded for much of that work through federal funds. But I don't think this is new, is it, Tammy? It is?
It is
Okay.
new. It's, to be perfectly honest, the federal government's not giving us sufficient
Oh,
funds.
this is deficit funding that we carved out? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And because they're not giving us sufficient funds for the overhead, we put this in as a general funded request to help support that program in the various areas of like information technology, current expenses, things that the Veterans Program uses a sliding scale for what they allow the department to charge for overhead cost, operating cost, and it's not sufficient to support the program. Honestly, it was either do this or
We have gone back to the Veterans Administration a couple of times, telling them that there's not enough administrative support to pay for our activities. We have, those efforts have not been met positively. They've not said that they would allow us to have any kind of an increased funding. And I think the whole budget is only about 157,000, Tammy, if I'm right. And so then they give you a certain amount of administrative support that's just not enough to pay for the cost. Especially if you have staff who are in those positions. And I apologize, I don't know why I'm losing my voice.
Yeah, I see on page 1220, it's 237,
yes,
and then it goes up to 247 the following year. And so what you're saying is that because the federal grant doesn't provide sufficient dollars to operate the program, that we need an additional 8,000 and 7.8 for 22 and 23.
You're muted, Tammy.
oh, I'm sorry.
You're open now. Your mic is still not working that great, that's all. You said, I saw you say no, but I didn't hear anything.
No, you are correct, Representative Umberger.
Okay, the next one down is the scholarship for orphans and vets. It looks like we didn't do anything in 20, but we did in 21. And then you're asking again for it in 22 and 23. So anyhow, tell me what, I know that the program is a scholarship program for children whose parents have died while serving in the military. Is that correct?
Either while serving or if it's service related, if it's a service connection, right? If they die after, but it's service related. And every year we run a variety of programs to try and identify candidates for this scholarship. Because it is relatively narrowly scoped, we have not always been able to award the scholarships because there's no eligible individuals that meet the criteria for this request. And we have, coordinated with the Adjutant General to try and identify these folks and do everything we can to try and get it out. Sometimes there is an eligible student and we're happy to award, and sometimes there's not anybody who fits the criteria for the award.
Okay, now this says that the sums appropriated will be non-lapsing. So how much do we currently have in there?
I think Tammy knew you were going to ask that, so.
I'll look it up and get right back to you. How's that?
Okay, that'll be fine. I'm just, if I got what you're saying, Commissioner, that it's difficult to necessarily find people, and that, maybe we could move this 10,000 to dual and concurrent enrollment or
So
or
I
something.
think there may be some limitations on the bequest. In other words, like you'd have to go back to the original law. I think we've actually taken a look at that at one point in time, that the law itself, and we can go help dig that up, enumerated how the bequest was supposed to be used, I think, or something like that.
Well, it's not a bequest, it's general funds.
Yeah, it has something tied to it. I'm not sure what that is, but we can go take a look at that.
Representative Umber. Right now, we have an available balance of 27,500. We have spent 2,500 this year. I don't know what that means moving forward, but I believe typically it's a 4-year program, so that may indicate that we'd be spending another $2,500 for the next 3 years.
Right, because generally we award, and right, each year the student gets an award.
Right, I understand that. Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to the next one down, the New England Board of Higher Education Scholarships and Grants. And you're asking for 147,000 there. What is that program all about?
Yeah, so that is actually our fees in NEBI, the New England Board of Higher Education. And by participating in NEBI, it allows New Hampshire students to go to another New England college at in-state tuition rates if the university system does not provide that particular major. I don't disagree that the sum is high. We have made several attempts to try and negotiate. Are we really getting our money's worth? There are some analyses that are done that demonstrate that there are several $1 million of tuition savings to New Hampshire residents who access this program. So that whole amount is basically our fee to NEBI.
So it's not really a scholarship, it's a fee.
Yeah, it's more of a fee, New England Board of Higher Education.
Okay, and this fee, I love fees. This fee allows people to go to Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, as
Right.
long as none of the colleges here offer that particular program. Is that correct?
That's correct. Right, they get to go there at their in-state tuition.
Now, is this both 2- and 4-year colleges?
I believe it is, but I'm not sure. I can find out. Is Steve Appleby on the call?
Mickey,
I'm gonna bring Steve in here.
Great, so Steve is the division director for the Division of Higher Education.
Good morning.
Steve, did you hear the question?
Yes, it does cover 2-year as well as 4-year. And the fee also pays for our participation in the National SARA agreement, which is the reciprocal agreement that means we don't have to review every single out-of-state college program that's offered in our state. And our colleges that offer outside of our state don't have to be reviewed in those states. So it saves our institutions funds and it saves the department staffing from reviewing these programs. I hope that answers
Okay.
the question.
now that makes me feel better. Thank you. Okay, this is the educator support for the Higher Education Commission. It's shows 269. Can we talk about that?
Sure, can you just give me a page and a line item?
Oh yeah, 225, 1220. Yeah, 1225. It's just a couple pages later.
The estimated source of funds for Higher Education Commission, $288,000, right? And so these are the personnel. Steve, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, but this, it looks like it's driven principally by our personnel that support the Division of Higher Education.
Yes, thank you. This is primarily the two positions, my position, as well as an unclassified position that support the division, as well as the Higher Education Commission, which is the body that, of course, the HEDC rules roll up to. And that commission has rulemaking authority and consists of college presidents and some lay folks. And they handle all of the post-secondary approval work.
Okay, so the cost is because of the employee.
Yes.
Yes,
Steve,
okay.
and Steve is one of those employees, right? So he
As
definitely
division
doesn't want to
director.
see any cuts on this line.
Okay, so what other commissions do you work with, or is this the only one?
Well, as division director, I also oversee the Bureau of Credentialing, the Bureau of Educator Preparation, the veteran state approvals that we were speaking of earlier, the Office of Career School Licensing, the bus driver background check position will be within the Bureau of Credentialing in my division.
As well as the Council for Teacher Education.
At Council for Teacher Education, the Professional Standards Board, we support those two boards.
Okay, so did you charge your entire salary here or not?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is just one of the things that that you manage. You're not full-time doing this.
Right, so I oversee the entire division, but it's paid for out of this account, my salary.
Okay. Thank you. Let me see how I need to make a note on that.
So Rep. Umberger, are you thinking that, you know, maybe we ought to do some cost allocations into, you know, credentialing or something like that? Is that what you're?
No, I'm not thinking that. I'm just trying to understand. I just thought for a board that wasn't paid, that this was kind of
Expensive?
a figure that I certainly didn't understand. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. No, I'm not. I agree that it's difficult to allocate stuff across the board. So let me ask about the IDEA people. I notice this is on 1235. I guess that most of what goes on with this group, the checking of the information that the
You've gone mute.
what? Oh,
So you've
okay.
gone mute, I didn't hear what you
I'm
said.
sorry. I guess I'm not. I said, are there other things? Well, maybe I should just ask, what is the general workload of these 21 people that are in the special education for elementary and secondary?
So does this include my federal funding as well? Yeah. So this includes a combination of, you know, we receive about $40+ million of federal IDEA funds, plus we get about $30 million of state funds. So part of it is allocating those funds out to the various schools, because most of this is pass-through funding to the schools. We then provide technical support to the schools in terms of how they will use those funds. For the most part, those funds are set up in our grant management system. So a district will fill out a grant application saying, here's how I intend to use my special education funds. We'll review those applications and ensure that all of their intended uses are eligible. Then as the districts complete those activities, they will report them as completed. We will approve or authorize those completed activities as being eligible, so that they can then get paid. And then the final piece of that is that we do monitoring. So we're actually going out to the districts and going through and really doing an audit of their special education processes to make sure that they are complying with the quite extensive rules around special education, both state and federal. And then I think the last piece that you'll have in there is around a complaint resolution. So we do have a full-time person who is managing special education complaints from parents and really just trying to help them navigate through the various mitigation or mediation type processes that we have, so that they can come to a resolution with their district.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go on to 1238 and the court-ordered placements. I wish Representative Lynn was here, but on the court-ordered placements, what? I guess my question is, what causes a court-ordered placement that that obviously can't be handled, and it's more than a school problem? Because I know we're showing 2 million, but we also showed that it cost us 3.2 in 20. So I just need some help with this.
So, and I can get an expert at it. I'll try to explain it at kind of a higher level, but there is some degree of detail associated with it. But I believe statutorily, when the court makes a child placement, could be out of district, and they say, like, this child's going to have to go to this home or this home, and that includes an educational component, we're required to pay that. When those court-order placements are made, they're made to authorized locations. It's not like they just can go to any old place, but they do go to very specific facilities. And then we are billed for those and have to reimburse those costs for the child's placement there. So that's probably too high level for you, but
yeah, that's I got that. I knew that, but I guess I'm looking at trying to figure out the next level down. That how many children do we have in court-ordered placements? What is the general reason for the court order? Are people sending the kids to court rather than taking care of it, locally? I mean, I don't know. And I'll quit at that. If you'll just get me.
I'll get you the information. I'll get you some information on that. Happy to do that. Unless Christine is on, I don't know if she wants to weigh in on that or not.
No, I think we should get the information so we give the exact facts. But
Okay.
thank you for the question.
I really would appreciate that.
Unless Mickey, is Becky on? Mickey's not on. Is there a Becky Fredette or Rebecca Fredette on?
No,
Yeah.
I don't see her, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just forward the information to us through Mickey.
Okay.
That will be fine.
Okay.
on page 1242, you've got state money for student wellness. So, and it's a new program according to this, and it's looking at 190,000 and general funds. So can we have some discussion about this new program? I didn't see anything nearby unless it's the student learner support system of care grant, if that's it or not, but just need some help with this.
Tammy, you want to jump in?
Yes, I can help on that. That is a new accounting unit that we took two positions.
Tammy, you're not,
You put your
You're
headset
not-
up, Tammy, because it's not working. It's really hard for anybody to hear you. Sorry.
I'll tell. Does this work?
go ahead and talk.
How's that work? Does that work?
That's better, I think.
Okay. Okay. I gotta get back to my thought. On page 1231, we moved, that is the Division of Learner Support Administrative Account. So we moved one of the positions over to that student wellness. So again, this is another way, like we did with Caitlin's division, of just trying to align positions into the correct accounting unit. And sometimes that requires us to create accounting units and then move positions over. And that's what we did in this instance.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the positions. I'm concerned about the program. Where did it come from? Because it wasn't funded before.
So I think it may be the naming conventions that I'm using when I develop new accounting units. So the program did exist before, but it was housed in the learner support account 6401, which is on page 1230 and 1231. I'm sorry, Rep, you're on mute.
Sorry. So when I look at that, I should see a corresponding decrease of 190 and 202. When I look back at page, you said 234.
231, 1231 is where you'll see a decrease. We went from 614 down to 563. It will not often be exactly corresponding because in the meantime, we have salary and benefit increases.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that the program on page, whatever it is, 1242 was embedded in these dollars on 1231.
Yes.
What I can say is we don't have a new program over there. We're still running basically our MTSSB types of programs through the system of care, and there's not a new program.
I got that. I was just trying to figure out where it came from. All right, these are, let's see here. Do we, I know, Commissioner, you had indicated that I think the number was 157 million from the Carissa Act or whatever.
156 million.
Okay, what's $1 million here and there in that kind of space? But how is that going to go out to the school districts? Is it going out through, they come in and ask for it? Or is it going to be distributed across the school districts based on something?
Yeah, so it will basically be distributed through the grant management system to the districts on a formula allocation based on Title I. And when I met with you at the overview, I don't know if you recall, there was kind of like a high level summary that I gave you on all these different pieces of federal funds. Because in all told, there's 305 million. And so we've kind of outlined for you what those are and how those can be used and how those will be made available to the districts.
Okay, so, yeah, I remember that whole thing, but you had said at the time that this second tranche of money had not gone out. So when do you expect that this next tranche will go out?
So it should be fairly soon. So just to be clear, of the 34 million that we've already made available to the district since last May, only 7 million has been accessed. And so these funds can be used for the same kinds of things. The only reason we haven't actually made them available yet is in order to accommodate these grant funds in our grant management system, we had to hire a programmer to be able to make modifications to the system to kind of replicate that grant infrastructure for this grant. I believe that contract has now been approved, and so they'll be making those modifications to the system. Once the system is set up, then the schools will be able to go into the grant management system and access those funds. In the meantime, we have already given them their preliminary estimates in terms of the amount of money and the eligible uses for those funds. So they today can be planning for how they will use those once we have the system accessible that they can access it.
Okay, so do you have a clue as to when that's going to actually happen?
I would hope in the next couple of weeks. Is there, I mean, because I've heard from some other folks that, I've heard from some schools saying like, hey, we want access to these funds. But everyone who's asked and says, and is concerned about having access to those funds still has access to unused ESSER 1 funding. And so we just encourage them to use those funds today. If they have an exigent expense, they're saying like, we need to spend money today. I'm like, well, you have these other funds, just spend those down. Quite frankly, those expenses are going to expire. They have a shorter timetable, and we want them to use those first. And so while I have heard from, not from any districts necessarily, but from people outside of districts saying like, when are you going to make these funds available? In fact, the schools have funds available to do the things they need to get done. I have not come across a district that doesn't have funding available to them. And so again, we're working through as quickly as we can, as you all are familiar with the contracting process at the state level, to hire somebody and get them to make the changes and stuff like that. Getting them to make the changes will be the easy part. Getting through the contracting process will be the most difficult. And so that just has to happen, and then we'll be able to make those available in the grant management system. Do you have constituents who are concerned that they need these funds exigently and they're not able to access them?
No, every time I ask, they say things are fine. So
This
that's
is what I hear too. So,
but if we're not spending the money that we have, I find it strange to send them more. And that maybe our allocation method needs to change unless that's federal law. But
that's federal law. Yeah, I don't have any input into that. That's how it comes. And just to be clear, with the most recent Relief Act that was passed, we'll be receiving additional funds. I haven't seen all of the details associated with that, but potentially as much as 300 million more to the schools.
Yeah. Representative Murray, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Is there a drop dead date at which these funds have to all be used? And is that going to create a problem that you might foresee?
So I don't, they have to be obligated by September 2022. We have a pretty good runway on that.
But that was the CARES Act, right? The first one.
No, that funding is, oh yeah, that's September 22. I said obligated, so the has to be spent by that date, but this one is obligated by 22, spent by 23.
Okay, that was the 900, well, whatever, the
That's the
150.
156, right?
Okay, okay. So, all right,
So we do have quite a runway to access those funds. And truthfully, we will have the funds out and available, but one of the things that is, kind of a priority for those funds from the U.S. Department of Education is really around learning loss and summer programming and what we're going to do in the fall to help those kiddos. So.
well, I will be surprised if school systems that don't have summer school would be able to gin up summer school, especially for the young kids. That, I mean, I realize the older kids are having problems as well, but the real problem is down in the younger kids, but that's my assessment overall. Okay, thank you. So let's go to school. Let's see, this is on page 1258, which is school nutrition state match.
Right.
Okay, so we know that everybody that wants a free lunch, wants a lunch, can get a lunch. And so what is going on with this money for the future?
Well, so we even, in order to be eligible for our federal food and nutrition grants from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we have a match. I believe this match goes back, decades in terms of the amount of match. They haven't increased it, but we have to continue to spend a certain level of state funds in order to be eligible to participate in the USDA funding. So this, would be required if we want to continue to receive those USDA funds.
Okay, and what is the state fund non-match?
So this is basically the state breakfast reimbursement funding, that there was a bill that was passed on that. So that basically, so you have free and you have reduced, and this basically took away kind of a reduced category and just made it free.
I'm not sure I understood what you said, but
So-
I'll get
so-
back to it.
So some students qualify for free, and so then they're provided their meals for free. Other students are qualified as reduced, and so they're contributing maybe 30 cents per meal or something like that. And so this was a piece of legislation that was passed that eliminated the reduced and just made it free.
Okay, thank you. Representative Murray?
Thank you again. Can you pop back a page to 1257 and start the story with the federal grant? Looks like it's been cut just pretty much in half. Can you speak to that and how that's impacts going on to the next couple pages?
Can you tell me what line item you're on?
72 on page
Oh, when
12.
we go from 57 to 2,500. Actually, Tammy, I'm gonna let you weigh in on that one.
Looks like it goes from, 5.7
Yeah, exactly. Right.
2.5.
What page are we on again? I'm sorry.
So page 1257, and we go from 5.775 to 2.5 million.
So this is, we get in like 7 different grants from the federal government, and we are trying to realign them into our state accounting units the way that we made some changes so that we can do reporting to the federal government easier on our side. So that one went down. You'll see on previous page on 1256, class 72 went up. So this is us realigning on our side so that we can report to the federal government easier.
So there were no dollars lost. It's just that if you add up all those, they still come out to the same thing.
Correct.
Or at least to our estimate of the grant. And then in addition to that, we had the COVID grant that we got in from the USDA as well.
Representative Heath, you have a question?
Thank you. Would it be possible, there's a lot of that in this budget in where you move things around. Are there footnotes or are there things that would help us to better understand what you've done through this budget? That would kind of be a walk through the changes that you've made?
I don't know if that counts, Tammy.
It's pretty much all in my head. I could try and put something together. I don't know if it would make much more sense than what I'm describing because something comes in and something goes out. So it may be so convoluted, but I can certainly try.
Thank you. It's just, it's confusing because stuff is all changed around. And unless you're here to tell us what the change is and the reduction in one place and an increase in another place. And then.
So
Caitlin, looks
So
like
I do think, I mean, at a very high level, if you look at the last page of the budget on 1295, so it shows the Department of Education's federal, general, and other funds. And that you can really see, our federal funds changes, the predicted increase in federal funds, some of the general funds, which has actually decreased about $5 million, and our other funds, which has decreased as well. Other funds is inclusive of the Education Trust Fund. The majority of that decrease is relative to the decrease in adequacy. And then you can also see the number of positions. So we had 282 positions proposed last year as opposed to 289. I know it's super, super high level, so you can't see, Tammy had a position in her side of the budget that's now in my side, but that might be kind of at least a helpful part to look at.
Okay, thank you.
I guess it would be helpful because, looking at what you're saying, Caitlin, you get that sense that there's an arc, but there's still that gap between, does that mean there's been a loss or just a move to someplace else in terms of some of the funds? So yeah, it's quite the string puzzle to sort it out. But thank you for doing this.
Okay. The next for me is on page 1262, which is advanced placement fee. It looked like there was no money in 20. We put 100,000 in 21, and now we're at 50,000. So can somebody talk about this, please?
Sure. So we had initially budgeted last time 100,000. And this is to pay for advanced placement tests for students. Principally, we target economically disadvantaged students. In 20, you don't see any spending there because of the pandemic that disrupted the AP exam, and the College Board went to an all online assessment and basically they themselves provided scholarships to students. So we didn't need to at that point in time. We had budgeted $100,000, but again, trying to meet the requirement for the budget parameters that we had. With the 100,000, we were able to pay for almost all of our AP, not just our economically disadvantaged kids. And the $50,000 will allow us to meet mission of paying for our economically disadvantaged kids that take the AP.
Okay, so the 50,000 in each year is basically to pay for the advanced placement test.
Exactly, the fee for the test. Yep.
When do those tests take place? At the end of the school year?
In May, yes.
Okay. And who provides the tests?
So the test is administered in the school, but it's a College Board test. So it's by SAT, by College Board.
Okay, so if I'm taking advanced calculus,
Yep.
which I'm lucky I can add 1 and 1, but if I'm taking advanced calculus, then the school would apply to
So
the College Board to get that test.
So the student would, and generally it's done through their AP teacher, the student would sign up to take the test, right? So the school is teaching the AP class all year long, and then they get towards the end and the student says, I'm going to take the AP test. So the student would sign up, and that student would be required to pay a fee to College Board. But we get a roster from the schools of the qualified students. And so we pay directly to College Board the tuition for those qualified students to be able to take that assessment.
Do we know is this a straight fee for the same for all classes, all courses?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay,
I think it's like $84, something like that.
$84. Okay. Okay. I know you guys shouldn't give me,
I'm gonna actually have to jump off in about 2 minutes. So I just want to let you know that. And then
okay,
that's okay.
no problem. I'm going to the CTE program. This is on page 1266. And 1267. I noticed that we eliminated the money for the dropout prevention there. And I am obviously somewhat concerned. Did we put it in someplace else or?
So we did not, Rep. Umberger, that was one of the decisions that we made through the budget process. And I think I may have alluded to this previously, but just let me refresh kind of the logic, because again, we're trying to meet our budget. So we're trying to figure out where we can make reductions and where we cannot. And so my choice for this program really stems from the fact that this came into fruition back, I think, in 2008, 2009, where the state saw a high dropout rate that they were uncomfortable with and wanting to do some type of an intervention. The circumstances on the ground today are not that. We do a good job making sure through a variety of different programs that we don't have a high dropout rate and that many of our students stay in school. And so it's almost like end of life. We started a program, it was successful. We were able to see reductions in our dropout rate. We were able to meet the goal of the program and accomplish it. And so then rather than have kind of that classic government program that never ends, this one of the different programs that we had appears to have more so than not met mission and would be a good place to redirect those resources at something else potentially.
Representative Murray, you have a question?
Yeah, can you say a little bit more about that? Because I mean, there was a time, I think it was New Jersey decided, well, we don't have polio anymore, so we're going to get rid of the vaccine, which is, you know, kind of, you don't have polio because you have a vaccine. So can you speak a little bit more about getting rid of this program? One might speculate that the dropout rate would thereby increase.
So one of the things, you know, we would hope that it wouldn't increase, but probably one of the things that has been most impactful over the years on dropout prevention was really an action that the legislature took when they increased compulsory education to 18. So now the students are in school until 18, and that affords them a runway and latitude for the schools to be able to work with them, to be able to help them navigate through to their high school diploma. And then the other program that you have supported, the legislature has supported consistently over the years, that has made a significant difference in terms of our dropouts is our adult education programming. Our adult ed programs serve many of these at-risk students, and by doing so, keep them engaged and are able to bring them through to a high school diploma at relatively significant numbers. We have about 1,400 students across the state who are between the ages of 16 and 18 involved in our adult education programs. And then the third event that has taken place over the last decade since this was first put in place really is, I would point to many of our charter schools. I believe it's about 8 of our charter schools are specifically targeted at at-risk students. So these are charter schools that are in place in order to help those kids who are at risk and work specifically with them. And so probably it's a combination of, it was appropriate at the time we got this program started, we start making a dent. There's been some other policy decisions over the last decade that seem to have made a significant impact, and therefore that's why we find ourselves where we are today. I don't know if that helps you, but.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is moving on to.
I'm going to have to jump out, Rep. Umberger. I apologize. I have a call with their school leaders at noon. I need to be on. So
No problem. So,
okay.
guys, somebody will be able to answer the questions. This is on adult education. And I noticed that the federal funds are like 2.2 and 2.3. But when we look at the state funds, it's costing us 4.1 million. And I guess that my real question is, why does it cost the state twice as much as the grant?
So my understanding of that program is that we are required to provide a match. And as we have provided more match throughout the years, now we're at a level of requiring that match and maintaining that maintenance of effort. And if we don't maintain that maintenance of effort, then we lose the federal funds on, as well as if we reduce the state funds, then we end up losing the federal funds. So it is a high maintenance of effort. I do agree. Unfortunately, we've kind of set that level and we are unable to reduce it.
So are we making giant strides with adult education?
I guess that would be a programmatic question. I would have to defer to the program administrator on that. I would think that she would say, yes, it is a very helpful program. But I can always ask her to answer the question and get back to you if that's what you'd like.
I would appreciate that because, and I guess that the other half of the question is how much of this adult education money is going to the children that Commissioner Edelblue talked about as being in adult ed? I mean, I can tell you that our adult ed program here in Conway is not very robust. And but what is robust is the kids that are in the adult education programs with our Eagle Academy. So I just need to have an understanding about how this money is benefiting adult education. That's all.
Yep.
I'm sorry I'm so full of questions, but this is a extremely interesting budget.
A lot of
So-
yours are mine, so you're helping me just go through this too. So
Yeah. Oh,
I'm letting you flag it. I don't need to. This is great.
okay. All right. Now I'm on page 1279. And this is vocational, this is the workforce innovation and the vocational rehab. This is for the people that have some sort of handicap
Yes,
that, okay, that the state provides money for their education.
it's to help them get back to the workforce. It's vocational rehabilitation. And this is, that $3.4 million is the state match that is required. Oh, Christine, you're there. Would you like to talk about the VR program?
Yep, that's exactly right. It's a program for students as well as adults that people who are disabled or perhaps maybe had some sort of injury that occurred in their lifetime. Our counselors do work with individuals to find pathways that they can be successful and be part of our workforce.
How does, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Murray, you have a question?
No, you can keep going. I can always wait, but I was going to ask if you have, I don't know, a return on, you get these people back into the workforce, a return on I guess return on investment is the standard phrase of how much we get back for helping these people to get back in the workforce.
I don't have an actual number, but I can figure that out. But I know that we have changed our programs up so that the employees that kind of connect them with the workforce, they'll have things like the longer that they're in a job, the benefits that they get, insurance. There's an increase with some of our contractors in their pay because we want to have them be successful in the careers that they choose and stay.
How does, oh, did you have another question?
Nope. You're muted, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I had pressed that hard enough. How does this program interact with the Health and Human Services programs that are out there for these same people?
So I believe that some of the one of the ways they support in the IEP meetings, we make sure that they have long-term, like that there's counseling going on so that if there's long-term supports needed, it is discussed in the IEP meeting, and then the Department of Health and Human Services can then know how many students or how many folks might be in that same category. So that's one way in which VR works with Department of Health and Human Services.
Yeah, I've always worried about duplication of services and finances between Health and Human Services and DOE, but I guess that's going to happen. So I was mainly concerned if you are in fact engaging with the folks at Health and Human Services, because that they've already, if the child is over 21, is that the cutoff age? If the child is over 21 or the person is over 21, then Health and Human Services picks it up. And I just wanted to be sure that the education part of it is interwoven into whatever their either past IEP or current is working on.
You're absolutely correct. And I think one of how we work with some of coordination is we want to make sure that Department of Health and Human Services know who these students are, because if not, there are a lot of students who can't get services till an older age. So we make sure that they know that the coordination is happening at the IEP meeting, And they even talk about the planning happening in the sophomore year, so that by the time they're seniors, Department of Health and Human Service folks know that they'll be coming their way.
Right, but the school system picks it up until they're 21. And so, but you work with children that are under 21 as well, is that correct?
Yes. Yep, and we have STS counselors that are in the department, that are in our vocational rehab. We kind of restructured it, so if there's 5, we call them STS counselors, to make sure that they're getting attention, that they have a pathway after school. And so some of the students go right into the workforce, and then some of them, depending on how complicated the issues are, would be passed on maybe, or working with Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, are there any questions there? All right, seeing none, let's go over to the service for the blind.
Rep. Umberger?
Yes,
It's Tammy. I got Sarah Wheeler on, if you'd like to go back to that adult ed question.
oh, sure, that'd be fine.
Can you phrase the question to her so she can have the context?
Probably not. Sarah, I was talking about the adult ed program and the dollars, obviously, which is what I was concerned about. But I'm not sure how successful the adult ed program is in the state. And that we have quite a bit of money focused on it. And yet, I see Mary, but I just am, obviously I don't want to eliminate the program. That's not what my goal is, but I think we have been more successful at the high school level with the adult education program than we have with adults. And so I'm just trying to come to grips with, are we focusing on the right kinds of things? Maybe that's my bottom line.
So adult education runs 2 different types of programs. One of them is under the Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act, which is the workforce development. And that is for anybody who is not enrolled in school or not required to be enrolled in school. So in that program, we don't serve anybody under the age of 18.
Is that, excuse me, is that in cooperation with the unemployment folks?
Yes, so we are a core partner. Title II is one of the 4 titles in the Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act. So we are all of Title II, and the services that we provide under that are designated as basic literacy, English as a second language, with the goal of transitioning individuals into post-secondary education training and or employment. About 60% of the students that we serve in that are English language learners. And we serve between 3,000 and 5,000 students a year.
In the, not in total adult ed or just in?
No, that's just in our WIOA adult ed program. So we also have an adult diploma program, and that we have a number of those around the states. And in that program, students earn credits towards a high school diploma or a high school equivalency, work on preparing for the high school equivalency. In that program, under state law, we are allowed to work with 16 and 17-year-olds if they they remain enrolled in school and they're enrolled in adult education. So that may be what you're referring to when you say that the services are working with our high school students. I will tell you that when that program was started back in the, I want to say the 80s, there were probably 100 students that were still enrolled in high school. And in the last couple of years, been closer to 1,500 to 1,600 students who are still enrolled in high school, who are also earning credits through the adult diploma program for a variety of reasons. And that actually has gone up since the pandemic.
Representative Heath, you had a question?
Just more of a comment. I'm a big fan of adult education, always have been. As a former high school teacher, Manchester has a robust program, as does Nashua. We've seen hundreds and hundreds of students who become disenfranchised with the traditional public school system, or who are fallen into some kind of a hardship where they have to have a full-time job. And adult education has become the vehicle by which they can get a diploma or an equivalency. We've also seen a lot of students who need a kind of a refresher course in mathematics will often take an adult ed class in math in order to get into the community college or a four-year college because their math skills just aren't up to par. So adult education is through my lens and the data I think supports it, it has been very productive in the state of New Hampshire and a big help since we changed the graduation age to 18. We've seen a lot of students matriculate through adult education very successfully. Thank you.
Like I said, I'm not opposed to the adult ed program. I'm just wasn't sure what we were including in there. And I think that Sarah probably helped me a little bit, including the GEDs and those kinds of things, which are extremely important. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, Sarah. And by the way, I like your background.
Thank you. It's New Hampshire.
Yes, it is. Are there any other questions that anyone has for DOE? Doesn't look like it. So I want to thank everybody that came this morning. And you did a good job explaining things, I think helping us all. We have no idea where we're going with the budget at this time. We've gathered a lot of information and we got a lot of work to do. And I guess, Mickey, is there anything in HB2 that we still need to discuss with DOE?
We've got the change relative to the free and reduced lunch ADM, which will come up when you talk about school funding. We'll deal with that then. There was the New Hampshire Scholars Program, the extension of the authority to accept the grants, gifts, donations for that accounting unit. You do have a couple retained bills relative to education that, the committee will probably want to consider those in relation to House Bill 2, whether or not you're going to want to add anything from those bills to House Bill 2. But nothing I don't think we haven't gone over already to this point.
Okay. And yeah, and we do have a couple of bills that are still need to come to us.
Yeah, I think we were referred a couple second committee bills, one relative to school building aid and one relative to special education aid. And new shared risk pool proposal. Neither of those we've had a work session on yet, so.
Yeah, we'll figure that out for soon. Yeah, yes, Representative Heath. If the folks from DOE want to go, you may.
Could I just ask them a quick question? Is there anything else that they'd like to tell us that we didn't ask them that they'd like to share with us in terms of their budget? That's a big question. No? Thank you.
Okay, you can stay or you can leave. That's okay. So, Mickey, we'll have to schedule those things shortly. I think everybody saw that the drop dead dates in the calendar has changed, and that's going to make it particularly difficult, I think is the right term for us, because we may or may not have positions, house positions on things that maybe should go into HB2. So it's, I don't know. We'll stumble along and do the best we can, but we'll manage somehow. But so no meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And Friday is going to be the university system. And we're going to talk about that in the morning, their cost saving measures, and then we'll press on to the combination of the two systems. Representative Murray, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Is Margie Smith going to be joining us for that? I thought that there was some possibility that she may be sitting in.
I don't know. I need to call her, and I'll probably do that tomorrow.
Can I add one other thing unrelated to this? Andrea asked about COVID. There's someone in our neighborhood who received Moderna for their first vaccine and Pfizer for the second. CDC doesn't even know what to do about that. So when you go, and they checked at they checked. At the very end, when the nurse came out, this was the Tuesday when it was so windy and cold and everyone was miserable. They were injected with the wrong vaccine. And they've been in touch with CDC, and it's like, they don't really know what this means, but I'm sure it's not the only time it's happened. But for all of us going in, when you go for your second time, double, triple check that when they put it in your arm, it's the right one. Thank you. Public service announcement. So.
Yeah, that's a great public service announcement. Yeah, so I don't know. Representative Heath said that she has a doctor's appointment on the 22nd. And so on that date, we won't do any voting because she won't be available. And I think it's only appropriate that when we are doing any voting, that everybody that's here needs to be here. And so, because we've all heard the testimony. They're still trying to come to grips with when we're going to have the public hearing. There's a proposal for one at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and then one at 9 o'clock in the morning. And so we'll have to sort ourselves through that and try to get ourselves together on that. And then, of course, we have to be finished. Is it the 29th, Mickey?
So I think the 26th is a Friday. And that was the original drop dead date that I had for all of the division decisions to be made by. That was assuming we would have a full committee exec session that following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there. So that would give us time to put it all together before we have a full finance exec. I don't know if anything's changing with, like if there's house session days that fall anywhere and it screws up the exec days for the finance committee. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think right now we're still shooting for the division recommendations to be complete by Friday, the 26th.
Okay, that sounds good. So have a great afternoon. We need to make sure that we look through safety and transportation to see what's going on there, because we've got a $6 million problem at least. So that's our next thing. As far as what's going on with the education fund, we've got a significant problem there as well. So I know it says, if you don't have money in the education fund, you can take it from the general fund. But oh, by the way, the general fund doesn't have the money. And so we have to figure out how within the education trust fund, we can at least semi get to zero. Because that is it's an issue. And I think we all know that Ways and Means, in my humble opinion, cheated us, but that's my opinion. I can't, I wasn't there, but we need to try to think about that and what's available. And I agree with many of Representative Heath's comments that, we really need this program back. And I don't disagree, but what program are we going to eliminate to get that program back? And those are the decisions that we'll be making in a couple weeks. So think about them, and we'll see what happens. So it's 12:15, almost 20 after 12. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you Wednesday morning. Not bright and early, but after we've had our first cup of coffee. Take care.